Grand Researcher Nixel's hands trembled as he reviewed the combat footage for the 100th time. The holographic display showed a human military unit, vastly outnumbered, surrounded by Zarkak's forces, in what should have been a hopeless situation. But what happened next had haunted his dreams for the past cycle. The analysis chamber of the Galactic Research Institute fell silent as he shared his findings with the High Council. Representatives from 30 different species leaned forward, their varied anatomies all displaying universal signs of tension. "What you're about to witness," Nixel began, his outer membrane pulsing with anxiety, "explains why humans are the only species in known space to be classified as Omega-level combatants." The footage played. A squad of 12 humans, led by Lieutenant Dominic Reeves, faced off against 60 elite Zarkak's warriors. The Zarkaks, 8-foot-tall beings with natural armor and enhanced strength, were renowned across the galaxy as supreme warriors. They had the humans cornered in the ruins of an abandoned mining facility. "Watch their eyes," Nixel instructed, zooming in on the human soldiers' faces. "Notice the physiological response." The council members shifted uncomfortably. Where other species showed fear, panic, or resignation when faced with overwhelming odds, the humans displayed something else entirely. Their pupils dilated, breathing steadied, and heart rates actually stabilized. "They're not just accepting combat," Nixel explained, his voice quavering. "They're embracing it. Their bodies are literally optimizing for warfare." The footage continued. The human squad split into smaller units without verbal communication, moving with practiced precision. They didn't just fight. They transformed their environment into a weapon. They used debris for cover, created improvised explosives from mining equipment, and set up killing zones with terrifying efficiency. "This is where it gets disturbing," Nixel continued. "Watch their adaptation rate." The humans began predicting Zarkak's tactics, countering strategies that had worked moments before. They learned, evolved, and improved their techniques in real time. When the Zarkaks adapted, the humans adapted faster. What started as a sure victory for the Zarkaks turned into a methodical dismantling of their forces. In 43 minutes, Nixel stated, 12 humans defeated 60 Zarkak's elite warriors. But it's not the victory that terrifies us, it's how they achieved it. He switched to biological scans. Humans enter what they call combat flow state. Their neural pathways reconfigure. They process information faster. Time perception alters. They become essentially living weapons. But here's the truly terrifying part. They enjoy it. The chamber erupted in murmurs of disbelief. Warfare was a necessity for most species, a means of defense or expansion. But to evolve to actually thrive in combat? It was unprecedented. Their history explains everything, Nixel continued. Earth, their homeworld, shaped them into perfect warriors. They evolved on a death world, fighting not just other predators, but their own kind. They didn't just survive, they turned warfare into an art form. They study it, practice it, perfect it. Even their entertainment simulates combat. The final footage showed Lieutenant Reeves approaching a wounded Zarkak's warrior. Instead of executing his fallen enemy, he provided medical aid. This, perhaps, was the most terrifying truth of all. Humans could switch from lethal efficiency to compassion in an instant. They're not just good at fighting, Nixel concluded. They've mastered the full spectrum of combat psychology. They can be ruthlessly efficient yet show mercy. They can inflict devastating damage yet provide immediate aid. They don't just defeat their enemies, they understand them. High Counselor Vextari, his crystalline form clouded with concern, spoke first. "Your recommendation? Revise all combat protocols regarding human engagement," Nixel replied without hesitation. "They're not just another warrior species. They're something we've never encountered before. Beings who turned the chaos of combat into a fundamental part of their nature. The most dangerous thing about humans isn't their weapons or their technology. It's their ability to transform any combat situation into their advantage." As the council processed this information, a final piece of footage played. It showed Lieutenant Reeves in a post-battle interview. When asked about the impossible odds his squad had faced, his response sent chills through the chamber. Impossible odds, he had said with a slight smile. That's just another day at the office. Humans don't believe in impossible. We just see problems that haven't been solved yet. The High Council immediately elevated humanity's threat level to maximum. Not because humans were aggressive or expansionist, but because they had discovered something far more terrifying, a species that had turned combat into an art form, warfare into a science, and impossible situations into opportunities. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The Galactic Research Institute's observation deck had become unnaturally quiet as Chief Military Analyst Kexvi reviewed the latest incident. The massive view screen displayed footage from what should have been a routine peacekeeping mission on the frontier world of Nexus 7. Instead, it had become another haunting example of humanity's combat capabilities. 3 standard days ago, Kexvi addressed the assembled researchers, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with intensity. We witnessed something that defies our understanding of warfare. The mining colony of Nexus 7 was attacked by Ravager, pirates, a force that outnumbered the human defenders 10-1. The footage showed the initial assault. 200 Ravager warriors, cybernetically enhanced and heavily armed, descended upon the colony expecting an easy victory. They found instead a small garrison of 20 human Marines led by Captain Olivia Winters. Watch what happens when the humans realize they're protecting 3,000 civilian colonists, Kexvi highlighted, manipulating the holographic display. Their neural patterns shift dramatically. The scans showed an unprecedented change in human brain activity. Stress hormones didn't spike chaotically as expected. They optimized. Heart rates synchronized. Brainwave patterns aligned in what humans called unit coherence. Captain Winters didn't just organize a defense, Kexvi continued, his voice tinged with a mixture of awe and fear. She orchestrated what humans call a symphony of warfare. Each Marine became a conductor of death, turning the colony's infrastructure into a battlefield that favored them. The footage showed how the humans used the colony's mining equipment in ways that made several researchers flinch. Industrial laser cutters became improvised defense systems. Atmospheric processors were converted into area denial weapons. Most disturbing was how the humans turned the colony's ventilation systems into a complex series of ambush points. They don't just adapt to the battlefield, Kexvi explained, highlighting tactical overlays. They reshape it. Every retreat is a trap. Every defensive position becomes a staging ground for counterattack. But it's their ability to coordinate that truly terrifies us. The display shifted to show how Captain Winters' Marines moved like a single organism. Without central communication, they anticipated each other's actions, created interlocking fields of fire, and executed complex maneuvers that seemed impossible for such a small unit. Here's where it becomes truly disturbing, Kexvi said, freezing the footage. The pirates attempted to use civilian hostages to force the humans to surrender. Instead of compromising their tactical position, watch what Private First Class Michael Chen does. The video showed a single human Marine deliberately exposing himself to enemy fire, drawing attention while simultaneously calculating a ricochet shot that disabled the pirate's shield generator. The move should have been suicide. Instead, it became a turning point. Chen survived despite taking 3 direct hits, Kexvi noted. Human bodies don't just endure punishment, they adapt to it. Their neural pathways actually reconfigure during combat, allowing them to function despite injuries that would incapacitate most species. The assembled researchers watched in stunned silence as the human Marines systematically dismantled the pirate force. They didn't just defeat them, they broke them psychologically. The pirates, who had initially thought themselves the predators, realized too late that they had walked into a trap set by superior hunters. The final death toll? Kexvi displayed the statistics. 17 pirates dead, 43 wounded. The rest surrendered. The humans lost no one. Even their wounded remained combat effective until the last shot was fired. But here's what keeps our military analysts awake at night. They operated at only 30% of their theoretical combat efficiency. The chamber erupted in worried murmurs. One researcher, a veteran of 3 interstellar conflicts, raised a trembling appendage. What's the theoretical maximum? We don't know, Kexvi admitted. Every time we think we understand human combat potential, they exceed our models. Captain Winters later stated this was a moderate engagement, requiring only basic adaptive tactics. The footage concluded with the aftermath. The human Marines, despite their wounds, immediately began treating injured pirates and securing the colony. Captain Winters was recorded speaking to a captured pirate leader, her words now studied in military academies across the galaxy. You thought because we were few, we were weak. But humans don't measure strength in numbers. We measure it in will, in adaptation, in the ability to turn any situation to our advantage. Remember this lesson. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't our guns or our ships. It's our ability to become whatever we need to be to survive and win. Kexvi closed the briefing with a sobering assessment. We've discovered that humans don't just practice warfare, they evolve through it. Each conflict makes them stronger, more adaptable. They learn from every engagement, passing these lessons down through generations. They call it institutional knowledge, right? But it's more accurate to call it combat evolution. The final image showed Captain Winters treating a wounded colonist, her hands steady, despite having just coordinated a defensive action that military strategists would study for decades. The duality of human nature, their ability to switch from lethal efficiency to compassionate care, remained perhaps the most terrifying truth of all. Recommendations? Asked the Institute's director. Continue observation but maintain distance, Kexvi replied. Humans aren't just warriors, they're combat artists who paint in survival and victory. The galaxy must understand. In warfare, humans don't just participate, they transcend. Dr. Zyrex stood before the Emergency Council of Xenopsychology, her tentacles rippling with nervous energy. The chamber's atmospheric processors struggled to keep up with the stress pheromones being released by the assembled experts. On the central display, footage from the recent Sigma incident played on loop. What you're about to witness, she began, fundamentally changes everything we thought we knew about human combat psychology. The Sigma Station siege wasn't just a military engagement, it was a revelation. The footage showed Commander Jackson, Reed and his team of 5 human special operations personnel, trapped aboard Sigma Station after a hive mind swarm had overwhelmed its defenses. Conventional wisdom said they should have died within hours. Instead, they survived for 15 days. First, Zyrax highlighted neural scans. Observe their response to isolation. Most species experience degrading combat effectiveness when cut off from support. Humans do something unprecedented. They become more dangerous. The display showed Reed's team moving through the station's corridors. The hive mind, a species that operated with perfect unity, had expected to overwhelm the isolated humans through coordinated attacks. Instead, the humans turned their individualistic nature into a weapon. They call it adaptive independence, Xerix explained. Each human becomes a separate combat system, capable of making instant decisions without compromising unit cohesion. The hive mind, used to facing enemies that either stood together or broke apart, couldn't comprehend an enemy that did both simultaneously. The footage shifted to day 7 of the siege. The humans had begun using psychological warfare against an enemy that was supposedly immune to it. They left false trails, created decoy positions, and used the station's communication systems to broadcast the sounds of human laughter, a sound that the hive mind found deeply disturbing. Here's where it becomes truly terrifying, Xerix continued. They don't just adapt to fear, they weaponize it. Watch what technical specialist Natasha Volkov does when cornered by superior numbers. The video showed Volkov, cut off from her team, facing a dozen hive mind drones. Instead of showing fear, she laughed, the sound echoing through the stations. Corridors caused the hive mind troops to hesitate. In that moment of confusion, she turned the maintenance bay into a killing ground. The hive mind reported something unprecedented, Xerax noted. They said Volkov didn't feel like prey showing bravado. She felt like a predator enjoying the hunt. This fundamental reversal of the prey-predator dynamic shattered their tactical algorithms. The council watched as Reed's team systematically broke down the hive mind's psychological defenses. They didn't just fight the enemy, they made the enemy fight itself. Every hive mind adaptation was met with counter-adaptations that seemed to violate the laws of combat psychology. By day 10, Zyrex highlighted more footage. The humans had turned the tables completely. Watch their brainwave patterns during extended combat. Where other species show fatigue, humans show something we've termed combat enlightenment, a state of heightened awareness that actually improves with sustained warfare. The display showed Corporal Marcus Thau, wounded and exhausted, still maintaining perfect tactical awareness after 72 hours without sleep. His neural pattern showed something that made several council members recoil. His brain was reconfiguring itself, optimizing for combat efficiency. They don't just endure, Zyrex explained, her voice trembling. They evolve. Every hour of combat makes them more effective, not less. The hive mind described them as learning machines that feed on conflict. Day 13 brought the most disturbing revelation. The humans began using the hive mind's own unity against it. They created situations where swarm coordination became a liability, forcing the collective to experience something it never had before: doubt. Commander Reed's final strategy broke every model we had, Zyrex continued. He didn't just defeat the hive mind, he made it question its own nature. The psychological trauma inflicted on a supposedly trauma-proof enemy was unprecedented. The footage showed the siege's end. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found 5 humans standing amidst the wreckage of over 300 hive mind drones. But it wasn't the physical victory that terrified the galaxy. It was the psychological dominance they had displayed. The hive mind issued a directive we never thought possible, Zyrex revealed. They classified humans as psychologically toxic, the first species ever to receive this designation. They fear not just human weapons or tactics, but the very way humans think about combat. The final footage showed Commander Reed's debriefing. When asked how his team maintained their psychological edge despite overwhelming odds, his response became required study at every xenopsychology institute. "You think we were trapped in there with them?" Reed smiled, his eyes showing that unsettling combat clarity. "They were trapped in there with us. Humans don't break under pressure, we crystallize. Every battle is a forge, and we're the metal that gets stronger with each strike." Zyrex concluded with a series of recommendations that sent shivers through the council. "We must revise our entire understanding of combat psychology. Humans don't just fight wars, they transcend them. They turn battle stress into battle focus, fear into weaponry, and isolation into strength. Most terrifying of all, they do this not through technological superiority or overwhelming numbers, but through the sheer force of their evolutionary psychology." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They had discovered a species that didn't just survive combat, they thrived on it. A species that turned psychological warfare into an art form, making even their enemies' strengths work against them. "Final assessment?" the council head asked. "Humans aren't just dangerous because they can fight," Zyrex replied. "They're dangerous because they transform through fighting. Every conflict makes them stronger, more adaptable, more terrifying. They don't just win battles, they rewrite the rules of warfare itself." The Galactic Security Council's emergency session began with a recording that made even the most hardened military observers uncomfortable. Fleet Admiral Zental, his crystalline form clouded with stress, presented the footage from what became known as the Nova Incident. "What you're about to witness," he began, "is why the combined fleets of 7 advanced civilizations now refuse to engage human vessels without a 20-to-1 numerical advantage." The holographic display showed the human warship Defiant, commanded by Captain Rachel Torres, surrounded by a fleet of Shadowclaw warships. The Shadowclaw, notorious for their superior stealth technology and overwhelming firepower, had sprung what they thought was a perfect trap. "The Defiant was outgunned, outnumbered, and cut off from support," Zental explained. "By every tactical analysis, their situation was hopeless. But we've learned that hopeless means something very different to humans." The footage showed the initial exchange. The Shadowclaw fleet, comprising 15 capital ships and their escorts, demanded immediate surrender. Captain Torres's response would later be studied in military academies across the galaxy. Surrender? No, I don't think I will. But I'll give you one chance to leave. After that, I'm going to teach you why humans don't believe in no-win scenarios. What happened next? Zental continued. Defied every combat doctrine we've ever developed. The Defiant's first move seemed suicidal. They charged straight at the enemy flagship, absorbing devastating hits that would have crippled any other vessel. But the humans had modified their shields in ways that the Shadowclaw's sensors couldn't comprehend. Chief Engineer Benjamin Foster, Zental highlighted, had reconfigured the shield harmonics during combat, not before, during. They were literally evolving their defensive systems while under fire. The display showed Foster's engineering team making real-time modifications to their shield geometry, turning each hit into data they could use to improve their defenses. The Shadowclaw's energy weapons became progressively less effective as the humans adapted their shield frequency to match the attack patterns. But it was Lieutenant Wei's tactical innovation that truly demonstrated why humans are so terrifying, Zental said, advancing the footage. Lieutenant Jennifer Wei, the Defiant's tactical officer, had noticed something about the Shadowclaw's supposedly perfect stealth systems, a quantum resonance pattern that shouldn't have been detectable. While under heavy fire, she wrote an algorithm that turned that microscopic flaw into a devastating weakness. She didn't just counter their stealth technology, Zental explained, his voice trembling. She turned it into a weapon against them. Every time the Shadowclaw ships cloaked, they actually made themselves more vulnerable. Their greatest strength became their greatest weakness. The Council watched in stunned silence as the Defiant executed a series of maneuvers that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Captain Torres had realized that the quantum wake from the Shadowclaw's stealth systems created micro-distortions in space-time. By executing precisely calculated moves through these distortions, they could achieve turns and accelerations that should have been impossible. Here's where it becomes truly horrifying, Zental continued. The humans weren't just surviving. They were learning, adapting, and teaching us a lesson about the true nature of warfare. The footage showed the Defiant's crew working in perfect synchronization. Each hit they took made them stronger. Each tactic used against them was analyzed, countered, and improved upon. They turned the very fabric of space into a weapon, using the Shadowclaw's own technology to create gravitational lenses that amplified their weapon impacts. In 27 minutes, Zental stated, a single human vessel disabled or destroyed 15 capital ships and their escorts. But it's not the victory that terrifies us, it's how they achieved it. They didn't just outfight the Shadowclaw. They outthought them, outadapted them, and turned their own tactical doctrine against them. The final moments of the battle showed the Defiant, damaged but triumphant, addressing the surviving Shadowclaw commanders. Captain Torres's words would reshape galactic military thinking. Every weapon you use against us becomes our teacher. Every tactic you employ becomes our lesson. You thought superior technology and numbers would guarantee victory. But humans don't just fight with ships and guns. We fight with innovation, adaptation, and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. Remember this. The more you try to force us to break, the stronger we become. Zental's conclusion brought a chilling silence to the council chamber. The Nova incident wasn't just a battle. It was a demonstration of why humans are classified as an Omega-level combat species. They don't just engage in warfare, they revolutionize it with every encounter. They turn disadvantages into advantages, weaknesses into strengths, and impossible situations into victories. The final analysis showed something that disturbed the Council even more. The Defiant's crew had maintained optimal combat efficiency throughout the entire engagement. Their neural patterns showed not stress or fear, but a state of heightened focus that improved as the battle grew more intense. Our final recommendation, Zental stated, is to fundamentally revise all combat protocols regarding human engagement. They're not just dangerous because of their weapons or tactics. They're dangerous because every attempt to defeat them makes them stronger. They don't just learn from combat, they evolve through it. As the Council processed this information, The final footage showed Captain Torres in her post-battle report. Her words would become a warning to any species contemplating conflict with humanity. You call it a miracle that we survived. We call it Tuesday. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology or our ships. It's our absolute conviction that there's always a way to win. The more you try to prove us wrong, the more we'll prove ourselves right. The Galactic Archive's highest security vault had never been opened for a full council session before. Yet here stood representatives from every major spacefaring civilization, gathered to witness Supreme Archival Director Val Thun present the most classified research compilation in known history, the terrifying truth behind human combat evolution. What I'm about to share, Val Thun began, his ancient form dimming the chamber's lights with waves of anxiety, represents 50 years of combined research from our most advanced behavioral, military, and xenobiological institutes. We've finally understood why humans are the galaxy's most terrifying warriors. And the truth is far more disturbing than we imagined. The central hologram activated, displaying a comprehensive neural map of human combat responses compiled from thousands of battles. The patterns it revealed made several council members physically recoil. We've been wrong about humans from the beginning, Val Thun continued. We thought they were just another warrior species, exceptionally good at combat. The truth is far worse. They're the only species in known space that actually requires conflict to reach their full potential. The display shifted to show comparative analyses of human brain activity during peace versus combat. Where other species showed degradation under warfare stress, human neural pathways actually became more efficient, more organized, more evolved. Their entire evolutionary history is based on what they call adversity response, Val Thun explained. Every challenge they face, every conflict they engage in, literally rewires their brains to become more effective. They don't just adapt to survive, they adapt to dominate. The footage shifted to the recent defense of New Eden Colony, where Commander Diana Patel and a small garrison faced an invasion force of swarm collective warriors. The swarm, biological weapons designed for perfect adaptation, had expected to overwhelm the colony through superior evolution. Watch what happens when the humans realize they're fighting an adaptive enemy, Val Thun highlighted. They don't just counter-adapt, they begin adapting faster than the swarm itself. The council watched in stunned silence as Patel's forces demonstrated why humans were now classified as combat singularities. They didn't just fight the swarm, they out-evolved it. Every swarm adaptation was met with multiple human counter-adaptations. Every new tactic the enemy employed was analyzed, improved upon, and turned against them. Here's the truly terrifying part, Val Thun continued. Humans don't see combat as something to be avoided. They see it as an opportunity for growth. Every conflict makes them stronger, smarter, more innovative. They have a saying, "What doesn't kill us makes us stronger." We always thought this was metaphorical. It's not. It's biological. The display showed neural scans of human soldiers before, during, and after combat. The progression was clear. Their brains were literally reorganizing themselves, becoming more efficient, more capable, more lethal with each engagement. Commander Patel's final strategy against the swarm revealed something that shook our understanding of warfare, Val Thun said, advancing the footage. The humans didn't just defeat an enemy designed for perfect adaptation, they forced it to acknowledge them as superior evolvers. The footage showed the battle's culmination. The swarm, facing an enemy that adapted faster than their biological programming allowed, experienced something unprecedented, evolutionary panic. They began making mistakes, their perfect coordination fracturing against an enemy that seemed to violate the laws of combat evolution. But here's what truly terrifies us, Val Thun revealed, displaying a new set of data. All of this, their combat adaptation, their tactical innovation, their psychological warfare, they're doing it at only a fraction of their potential. We've discovered that humans possess neural pathways that only activate under extreme combat stress. The more we push them, the more they awaken. The council chamber fell silent as Val Thun displayed the final analysis. It showed humanity's combat evolution curve, a line that didn't plateau like every other species. but continued to rise exponentially with each new conflict. The ultimate truth about humans isn't just that they're good at warfare, Val Thun stated, his voice trembling. It's that warfare makes them better. Every battle they fight, every conflict they engage in, awakens more of their potential. They're the only species we've ever encountered that actually benefits from trying to destroy them. The display showed Commander Patel's final message to the retreating swarm, a statement that would be studied by xenobiologists for generations. You thought evolution was about becoming the perfect weapon. We learned long ago that true evolution isn't about the weapon, it's about the warrior. Every challenge you present, every obstacle you create, every attempt to defeat us just shows us new ways to become stronger. You don't just face our weapons or our tactics, you face the accumulated combat experience of a species that turned survival itself into an art form. Val Thun's conclusion brought a heavy silence to the chamber. Our final recommendation is clear. Avoid conflict with humans at all costs. Not because we can't win battles against them, but because every battle we win makes them more dangerous. They don't just learn from defeat, they transcend it. They don't just adapt to survive, they adapt to dominate. The Council watched. The final piece of evidence. A time-lapse showing humanity's combat evolution over just 2 centuries of spacefaring existence. Their rate of adaptation, their speed of innovation, their capacity for combat evolution outstripped anything seen in galactic history.